And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 275. Today is the texture challenge. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked all about that notion of texture and how to bring it out in your photos. And we've had about a dozen or so people send in their images. We're going to look through them. So that's what it's about. If you're around watching live, stick a comment in down below. Make a start. Yeah, we can get going. Yeah, so welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 275. So yes, the texture challenge. That's what it's all about today. Like I say, if you happen to be watching live, then leave a comment. Let me know where you are. Let me know what the weather's up to. I understand in North America at the moment, there's a kind of a big freeze thing going on. Hope some of you, any regulars who are watching from there, can join us live. If not, join us on the catch-up. If you're not watching live and you are joining us on the catch-up, you can still leave a comment in the down below, but I just won't be able to respond live to it. But that's okay. And of course, if you happen to do, click the like, the usual thing. Remember, if you click like now, hopefully this pops up in a few feeds as we're going out live to other people who may be interested in photography. So that always helps as well. So I see we've got a couple of comments in already. Let's see where we're at. So Lisa says, good morning from a freezing cold, snowy Maryland. April says, greetings from Long Island, New York. The snowstorm has started and it is freezing cold. Lisa's suggesting that April keeps her hot cocoa nearby. Susan says, hi from a rather grey Kakubri. Fortunately not as cold as Lisa and April. No, it is true. It's not cold. It's well, by comparison, it's 4.5 degrees Celsius here, which must be positively warm compared to where you are. But just, it's, yeah, cold and damp here. Where are we? Yeah, Lisa's hoping you don't lose power. Yeah. Okay, a few bits of fingers crossed chat between Lisa. Okay, so we've got Stacey's joined us as well. Welcome, Stacey. Says, good morning all. We're in a serious snowstorm. It's cold and expected total of snow about 12 to 17 inches. Wow, that's huge. Janet says, hi from a chilly Mississauga, warmed up from minus 21 Celsius yesterday to minus 9 Celsius. The same snowstorm is just starting for us as well. Forecast is up to from 12 centimetres to 40 centimetres, depending on the source. Viji joins us from Chennai and says, good evening, where it's raining. Okay, so, yeah. So we have people in, we have weather forecast from around the world. Right, so today, what are we talking about? Today is the texture challenge. So 2 weeks ago, episode 273, we talked about the notion of texture. When we're looking at a picture, it is two-dimensional, a bunch of little pixels, dots, depending on whether it's printed or it's on a screen. And how do we convey a sense of touch, of feel, of what it might feel like if you were to rub your thumb across it, if you were to rub it against the side of your cheek, if you were to lick it? What would the texture feel like? And to convey that sense of texture, we generally speaking, we're playing around with light, shade, memory, which what we've got to try and do is induce in the viewer a sense of they know what it would feel like, even though they can't reach through the screen or the paper to actually touch it. So, like I say, episode 273, if you've not already seen it, after this one, go back and click through, is full of loads of information, examples and ideas of how to create the sense of texture in photos. What kind of photos work better for it? What kind of lighting works better for it? All that kind of thing. So, I then set a texture challenge, and we've had, I think it's 11 people have sent in their photos. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the photos, take a look at how the different people have tackled this idea of texture, and then hopefully we'll give you a few ideas of maybe how you would do it, if either you would redo it if you've already been having a go, or what you might do in the future to play around with this idea. And texture is one of these things that crops up in challenges. Indeed, on these online sites, if you go to PhotoCrowd at the moment, photocrowd.com actually has a texture challenge that finishes tomorrow. So, if you want, you've still got, after this podcast, obviously not during, if you want to take part in that, so you just pop over to PhotoCrowd after this podcast and stick your entry in for texture. If you feel that either use the photo, if you've submitted one to this, or, having gained some insights into what makes a good texture photograph, maybe you can rummage through your files and find something to stick in that. And hopefully, maybe you'll score slightly higher than you normally would. That's always the idea. Anyway, what else do we have? Meg's joined us and says hello, everyone. And John says hello, everyone, from mid-Ohio. We're in the middle of the bad snowstorm. Minus 10 Celsius, 38 centimetres or 15 inches of snow. Wow. Okay, yeah, so big snow. Hopefully go out and build some snowmen afterwards. Wrapped up warm. But in the meantime, I hope your electricity, your power stays on. Hope you've got plenty of heating. Hope you've got your nice hot cup of cocoa for watching the podcast. Right. Okay, so what are we going to do? Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping and tidying up on my desktop here as I move that screen over to this screen so that I can now stick some pictures up over this side. And then what I can do is I can go to our first picture, which is from John in Ohio. And so what we've got here, well, it's a piece of rope. And John started off with, let me find, basically this was a photo taken at a dock some time ago. And it was taken with texture in mind. And so there we go. And I thought this was probably a good one to start with, where it is that sense of, if we're talking texture, this is texture. This is, we know what it is. If we're familiar with the idea of rope, then we know what rope is. We can see that it's frayed as well, that it's old, it's aged. It's not bright, new, fresh rope. We can see how it's sort of pale on the outside, and then where it's split on the outside, it's kind of yellowish, and then where it's split even further in, it's whitish. And we've got all that sense of the fibres. And yes, if we're talking then about that sense of touch, you know what it would feel like to rub your fingers over it, to rub the side of your face against it, and dare I say, to lick it. Now, I wouldn't recommend licking the rope, but somehow you know what it would feel like. So in terms of texture, I thought this was probably quite a good one to start with. So thanks for sending that one in, John. What have we got here? Lisa says, nice one. And April says, I can feel that rope. And Susan says, great textures, John. Excellent. Right. Okay. So next up, we're going to go to Lisa. In Maryland, I think, and Lisa says, I took this picture about 5 years ago. I thought the texture on the skin of this aged red pepper. So for all of those of you who took one look at it and thought, is that a heart? Which is what I did. I must admit, actually, it's got such a kind of fleshy feel to it. I immediately wondered if it was, actually a piece of meat, or, like a heart or something from a, but there we go. It's actually an aged red pepper. Just thought it made an interesting still life. She's looking forward to the podcast. And this is good. And it is interesting that you have that notion of the way the light reflects off it and the colouring. So and what Lisa's done here, she's used a shallow depth of field in this one. So, it's in focus only on a narrow plane here. So it's in focus just here. By the time you get to the stalk of the pepper, it's gone out of focus. And when you get to the very front of the pepper and the front edge of the bowl plate that it's in, it's also out of focus. So there's just this sort of line just here. And the way the light's reflecting off it gives it that kind of shinier feel. So it could be almost like blood, but it's also, you get so it's that pepper skin that you get, which is always slightly shinier, but then it's all kind of crinkled and mushed up. So yeah, lovely sense of texture there. So thanks for sending that one in, Lisa. What have we got here? Oh, April says the pepper feels smushy. Good idea. Viji says, oh, the pepper one is good. The dark background, the lighting and the texture all come across well. And John says, nice one, Lisa. Actually, that is a little point here as well, which is it's worth thinking about, which is the fact that it disappears into the black. The darkness behind is allowing all the attention to draw to the texture itself. And that's another aspect of texture when you're trying to work out, how to convey the texture. Sometimes it's about isolating that texture. And in the case of Lisa, what she's done here is by having the black background, your attention gets drawn to the colour and therefore the texture that comes with it. Whereas with John's, what he's done is more of a fill the frame. So the texture is each indent of the rope is by comparison to other indents of the rope. So it's not being distracted by anything else is basically the point of that. So Lisa's thanking everyone for that. Okay, next up then, and Nicola's joined us. Hi, Nicola. Glad you could make it. She said, Nicola says, hello, Kim and everyone. A very brief check-in as I'm out in the middle of Galloway on my bike, trying to get fit. We'll catch up when I get back. Okay, well, delighted you could sort of just stick your head round the door, Nicola. Yeah, leave a comment, click a like or whatever at the point you get back. That would be great. Okay, enjoy the rest of your bike ride. Next up then is from Nadia. And, Nadia's probably, this is the one where it's Viji look away now. Just before we get to that then, Robert's joined us from a frozen middle Tennessee. It's -1. Okay, right, so even way down south, getting cold there. So Robert, normally in Texas, currently in Tennessee. -1. Right, yes, so back to Nadia then, and Nadia's picture, yes, is this kind of Viji look away now, although it isn't actually a snake, it is a lizard. So what we have here is this notion before that Viji said that she really doesn't like snakes. Nadia was looking for texture, and she has this picture of a lizard, and which has quite a snake-like head and, obviously long forked tongue sticking out of it. But there's lots of texture within this. There's all the texture of the dirt, the sand underneath, but the texture of the scales, even the texture of the tongue, which oddly enough, compared to everything, sort of almost looks like it's wooden. I can imagine like a carved piece of wood for that. It's not quite what you expect from a tongue. But we've got all the scales of the lizard, but also the folds of the skin as well. So the light is kind of bouncing around here. There's obviously a key light coming down from above, but part of it is also bouncing off the sand and then reflecting under and creating these sort of slightly extra level of golden hues underneath. So and anyway, so Nadia says, this is my submission for the texture challenge. You were right, Viji did say she didn't like snakes. You might be thinking, this is not a snake, but the face shape and the forked tongue might freak some people out, especially if they don't like lizards or snakes. I took this picture when I visited a zoo in Spain a few years back. I wanted to try and time it to get a shot with its tongue out. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. You must be sitting there for a little while. I can imagine it's the kind of thing whereby you also get several missed shots, because the moment you see the tongue come out, by the time you've registered it and gone click, it's probably gone back in again. She goes on to say, it was quite tricky as it was going in and out fast. There we go. Trying to hit the shutter button at the right time took patience and timing. However, surprisingly, I did manage it on my second try. Oh, well, that's pretty good. I was very chuffed at achieving it so quickly. I thought I would be there all day. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. You could easily be there all day. I feel the texture in the skin of the Komodo dragon and the stones in the foreground fits this challenge. Oh, it's a Komodo dragon, is it? I wasn't sure whether it was a Komodo dragon or maybe a monitor lizard. Okay, yeah. So lovely amount of texture in that for sure. What have we got here? So Viji says, is it an anteater or like a chameleon that has changed colour? Anteaters are actually mammals, I think, rather than lizards. Susan says, fabulous Nadia, love the brown gold tones. Viji says, my God, scary, you did scare me. John says, lots of texture on this creature. And Viji says, thanks for the heads up, appreciate it. Thought it probably best to kind of give you a bit of a reminder first, or yeah, warning rather. Right, okay. So yes, thank you for sending that one in, Nadia. That's nice bit of texture there. Right, okay. Next up then is Meg. So Meg, I know Meg's been going out for walks recently, taking her phone with her to try and capture something, and she sent in this one. Says, "Hi Dad, went out for a walk to the loft down at Clattering Shills Loch in Castle Douglas, and I love the texture on this tree." And so, yeah, this is a kind of prime example, I think, really, of how texture is all around us. It's an odd thing because there's been a couple of people who've sort of put in images from a few years ago, or were rushing, couldn't really find something to put in. But this is a good example of where you can find texture anywhere. And the tree, tree bark, and then the moss next to it. You can see all the indents. But it's also with the tree. Now, this was taken on a dull day, but it's a good, if you have sunlight coming and it's hitting the edge of the tree, this is one where you would perhaps move round. As you moved around the tree, you would find the light and the shadow hitting at different points. And if you got the light just at the right kind of side angle onto it, then all these little indents would sort of leap out that little bit more. But there's a nice kind of contrast between the hardness of the bark and then the softness of the lichens growing on the side of it as well. Interesting little shapes indented into the bark there as well. So fun little shot that. Nice one, Meg. Thank you for sending it. What have we got? April says, a nice find, Meg. And John says, nice texture shot, Meg. And Lisa says, great shot, Meg, too. Now, next up, we've got, Susan says, lovely, Meg. I've been looking at trees on my walks and they're gorgeous with all the moss. Yeah, there is something about that combination of the hard bark and the soft moss, which can work really well. Now, next up, we have April. And I have to say, I do love this one. So April says, my submission for the texture contest is a spoon of breakfast cereal with milk and honey. Is a close-up of a breakfast cereal with milk and honey on a spoon. I got a new light box, so decided to use it. This photo was taken strictly for the texture element. I have better shots in my archive, but wanted to do something new. Well, that's great. I really like that, April. And this is, so again, actually, if we want to go back to this idea, you can find texture anywhere. You can find it looking into your bowl of your breakfast too. Now, this looks like a really nice, healthy kind of muesli or granola or sort of some kind, lots of oats. And this well-placed, or was it coincidental or well-placed? I don't know. A raisin here with just the little bits of milk and what have you shining into it. It's so rich. It's so textured. And I'm starting to salivate at this. I have a really nice muesli for breakfast every morning as well, and so I kind of I can feel it in the mouth. It's just it's rather good. So the only slight problem with this, now you won't see it unless I kind of reduce it, is quite bright up the top here, so I'm not entirely, and so I would have perhaps suggested either darkening that down in Photoshop or creating some little kind of shield, but the rest of the texture is looking great, and nicely, and the spoon coming into it I think is a really important part of this. The spoon obviously then has that other texture, but it also gives it much more of a context. And what I really like is that notion of the everydayness of it, also a bit like with Meg's tree as well, is that you don't have to go to exotic places or to be, that there is texture in everything. If you just find a towel getting close, you can find texture. You can find texture on a shirt, on a beard. Happen to be living with anybody who's got a beard. There's all sorts of, and that notion of that, the everydayness, I think is quite an important part of photography. It's one of those interesting aspects of photography, I think, and is often underrated. There's this notion of photography somehow that sometimes we have to kind of find or create the epic And there's no doubt there's a lot of fun in creating the epic, and I do cinematic, theatrical, artistic, epic photography as part of what I do for a living. And there's that notion of going out into the landscapes and finding beautiful light with epic landscapes and or incredible animals in exotic places. But the other great thing about photography is the everyday. We've talked, in fact, we've done podcasts on and even challenges on before now, the notion of the mundane, the everyday. What the camera allows us to do is look at something that we see every day in a different way. It causes the fact that instead of using our full range, we're now using this range. And instead of just looking at it from normal eye distance, we can zoom in. And so we can see things in a different way. The way we look through the camera isn't representing the world as we see it. The camera is giving us a chance to see the world in ways that we don't usually see it. And so that notion of the mundane, the everyday, and so whether it's breakfast cereal or it's tree bark or something similar, I think is a wonderful aspect of photography, and like I say, not to be forgotten about or underrated. Where are we? John says, brilliant shot, April. April says, thank you, John. Viji says, raisins. That'll be the little bit sitting in the muesli. Susan says, inspired April, shows we shouldn't just ignore the everyday stuff. April says, eats Alpen cereal. Okay, that's a good muesli one. Viji says, feeling hungry, beautiful textures. Right. Next up then, where are we? We are, okay. Yep, we're going to go to Janet. Now, Janet sent in this one. I just need to enlarge that slightly. So what we have here is a skater on an ice rink. And Janet says, I've attached my submission for the texture challenge. No success in trying for a new image. So this is an old image from a skating show in Peterborough. So yeah, this is where obviously, unless you're actually out there on the ice, you're probably using quite a zoom lens and then cropping in. Now, so what we've got here, what I find kind of interesting here is that the text, the point of focus isn't on the skates behind. The point of focus is a few inches in front of the skates. So actually, if we look at it, the sharp point is here, where the skate has gone through that top layer of ice, creating all those little crystals and whatever. You can see scratches into it. By the time you get back to the skates, it's starting to get out of focus. Now, it's kind of interesting. I'm not totally sure how well it works completely. Because if that's what it's really about, if it's about the texture of the ice and the cuts into the ice, in a way, the ice skates become a distraction because they're so big, they're so dominant. And I think what happens when I look at this picture is I look at the picture and the first thing my eyes get drawn to are the feet, are the ice skates. But actually, those bits are slightly out of focus. What's in focus is the scratch into the ice in front of it. So there's a kind of a competing sense here. What is it? What's the narrative? What's the key narrative here, Janet? What is it you're trying to get across? And if what you're trying to get across is that sense of skating, of the boots, then actually the focal point needs to be on the boots themselves. And then maybe what we would see is we can see here that there's a bit of scraped up ice crystals on the front there. Now, if that was in focus, then that's where we would expect it to be in focus. And there's reflections here coming off the blades as well. Those are the things that are grabbing our attention. So those are the bits we expect to be in focus. Because the focus is in front of it, it means that we're competing with it. Our eyes get drawn here first, rather than onto the ice crystals, if that's the bit of the texture that you're wanting the eye drawn to. So I hope that kind of makes sense there, Janet. Janet says, I was aiming to focus on the boot or the blade, but easier said than done. Oh, absolutely. This is true. Every shot we go for, there's no guarantee we're going to try and get it. So if we come back to that point, then that if what was really supposed to be the narrative was the boot, then your focus point is just slightly in the wrong place for that. So in terms of texture photo going in for a texture competition, like if you were to stick it into Photo Crowd or Viewbug, Guru Shots, any of these kind of online sites, then I think your focus point really has to be on the thing that you are trying to get your attention towards. So if, so maybe you pick a different photo in this case. But yeah, I see what you were trying to do. And yes, thanks for sending that one in, Janet. Right, okay. So next up then, Viji's in India. Now this is kind of a fun one. Right, let me just click here for the moment. Actually, let's just do one quick little bit again of rearranging the space slightly, because what I'm going to do now is show you Viji's. And what we have is a liquid bubbling over a bronze metal pan or copper pan, and lots of texture and different things going on here. So Viji has told us to tell us what this is all about. I want to submit this photograph for the texture challenge. This is Pongal, Pongal. I'm presuming it's Pongal. Is actually a dish made from rice, lentils and jaggery, which is an unrefined cane sugar. It's a Thanksgiving festival to the farmers and nature, especially the sun. Everything we use comes out of the earth, including the cookware. Usually, earthenware pots on a firewood stove are used in the front yard garden after sunrise. But slowly, over time, we've moved into the kitchen owing to pollution, and earthenware pots were replaced by bronze. So, instead of being in an earthenware pot out in the front yard, it's now bronze pots inside. But it's still all part of the ritual of the festival. She goes on to say the marks that you see, so these marks here, are also white and saffron coloured sand, which represent Lord Krishna. Fresh turmeric is tied to the turmeric stem. The turmeric stem is tied onto the neck of the pot. So this here is a turmeric stem tied onto the side of the pot. And as the milk and water boils over, as we can see, the little drip hanging down here, when it spills over, we cheer Pongal, oh Pongal, which probably sounds terrible in an English accent. The direction the milk spills also marks abundance and good fortune, after which we add the rice and the lentils and cook sweet Pongal. Especially it is auspicious if the milk spills on the east side as the sun rises in the east direction. And it did for me on this time. I'm glad to know there was auspicious spills for you there, Viji. I say, it's so fun. These kind of rituals and ideas and ceremonies and ways of doing different things kind of makes my life feel a little bit flat that I don't have enough of these things in it. She actually says, I follow and celebrate all the festivals meticulously. It keeps me grounded. I wish my son would take more notice and continue the tradition, thereby keeping our roots. I think, yeah, well, that's always the thing, is it? As each generation, next generation, maybe doesn't follow what their parents were doing, there's always sort of this slight sense of loss. But how fabulous, Viji. I really appreciate getting the story with it. The story makes it really interesting. But even without the story, it's interesting. There's multiple texture going on. I mean, the bubbles here in the bubbling milk water, we've got that bronze also, with that little bit of light reflected down there, that bit of warmth. We've got the markings of the red and the white sand for Krishna. We've got the turmeric stem going round as well, and I particularly like this little sort of drop as it starts to spill over, hopefully in the direction of the east, for the maximum auspicious. So it's, yeah. Now, in terms of the only thing I would say is that actually this feels like it could do with just a little bit of deepening in the editing. And I'll show you what I mean with this. So if I just open this one up in Photoshop, it doesn't take a lot, but if we were to take the brightness contrast and just boost the contrast a little bit. And maybe take the brightness down a fraction so we don't lose too much in the way of the, we don't want to blow the highlights too much. But something like just something as simple as that, I think really sort of draws out the richness of the bronze and a little bit more kind of sense of the bubbling over the top. So you can see just doing that just gives it that little bit of boost. So that's the only thing I would really suggest with that. But, you know, lots of lovely texture, and particularly the story. I do love the story that goes along with that, Viji. So, yeah, thank you very much for sending both the story and the picture. Hugely appreciated. Right. Okay. So what have we got here in terms of... still on the with the skating one, April said it looked very cold. Sue said I tried skating once. Viji said, Janet, from a sunny land I can feel the chill, the scratches, ice, steel and crossed feet like the shot. So now on to Viji's. April says, I love the bubbles, I can feel them. Susan says, you made a fabulous image here, Viji, can almost taste it from your description. April says, I want to taste it. Lisa says, very well photographed. And John says, I appreciate the story with this Viji, nice shot. And Viji says, it stands out. I tried darkening, but it didn't work for me. Thanks, Kim. Oh, Marcy's joined us. Welcome, Marcy. Glad you could make it along. Says, good morning, y'all. Lisa says, I'm getting some buffering. Is it just me? Okay, unfortunately, I have no idea at this point. I hope it's kind of slowing down. Not slowing down. I hope it's disappearing is what I mean. Viji saying no buffering. Janet's not getting any buffering. Okay, could be just you then, Lisa. So, okay, right. Yeah, could well be the storms and everything. So hope we don't lose you there, Lisa. Right, so just a quick reminder then that, well, actually, I'll tell you what, let's do a quick Smug Points update. Well, basically, as we're standing at the moment, Nicola is on 50 Smug Points and everybody else is pretty much on 25 or less, depending on whether they've been commenting live or not. Because last week was a feedback session and Nicola was the only one to send something in. So she got a bonus 25 Smug Points where nobody else did. So she's now 25 points ahead of everybody else. But that could change because once we're about halfway through at the moment. When we get to the end of going through these images, you get to vote. There'll be my vote. There'll be the bonus points that I want to give out to, but there's also the viewers' vote. So keep that in mind. I will run through the photos one more time at the end just so that you can decide. And depending on how that voting goes, you know, it will make a difference as to whether Nicola becomes a Smug Points winner for January or whether somebody else pips her at the post. But Nicola was being quite sneaky there by just making sure, but even though she's out on a bike ride, popping in for a moment to say hello means she does get her 5 Smug Points for leaving a comment live. If you leave a comment live, you get 5 Smug Points. And you'll all be getting 10 Smug Points for anybody who sent in an image as well. Yes, so that's where we are with the Smug Points. Quick little reminder that if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. And if you are wanting to send in images for critique and feedback, then kimayespodcast@gmail.com is the easiest way to do it. I've set up a separate email address just to get the entries in so that it doesn't clog up my usual mailbox. If you send something to my usual mail, it's not the end of the world, but it just does make it easier if you can remember to send it to the kimayespodcast@gmail.com. If you're also, another place you can stick images in is the Facebook group. Flickr group seems to sort of faded out, not really doing anything much at the moment, but certainly if you're on Facebook, you can stick your image in there as well. Right, okay, so where are we? Oh, Nadia's joined us up in Fife, I think, unless you're heading somewhere else. So welcome, Nadia, glad you could join us. Oh, John says he's put a few other texture shots on Flickr. Okay, cool. Excellent. So, I mean, the Flickr site is there. It's available and it's got lots of different you can create new threads on it. The idea of it was created so that people can have more conversations rather than just a single thread where the last thing is always knocked down to the bottom. You can, if you want to use it more, then it's a place where you can have more discussions, put images in, discuss ideas, all that kind of stuff. So it's there if you want to use it. Right, okay, so where are we now? So yes, just that, actually, a little bit of a reminder, to be honest, that, like I said, with the texture challenge, that Photo Crowd has in fact got a textures challenge going on right at the moment. That finishes on Monday, so that's one you can go for. Right, where are we going to go to now? So, right, okay, yes, Susan. Susan comes up next, and do that. And this is Susan's one, called The Feather Bed. And Susan says, "Hi Kim, on a wet foul day." So that was obviously on the day that she sent it in. "So what else was I going to do but concoct an image for the textures challenge? This is entitled The Feather Bed. The feathers were collected on my walks on a golf course, and Woody," her own little wooden mannequin, has been sitting forlornly on my windowsill for ages, waiting for the opportunity to be used. Now, the background texture of wooden planks was imported as a separate layer in Photoshop. I thought the mix of soft, fluffy feathers, the smooth feel of Woody, and the graininess of the planks gives 3 totally different textures and hopefully fulfill the requirement. The most difficult part was getting the mannequin to recline in a suitable position. Looking forward to seeing some interesting images on Sunday. So that's fun. And I will just say, I mean, that's just making reference to my own little wooden mannequin here. There is, and I would say, I think Susan's is possibly a slightly better made version than mine. So you can get it into a better shape. There is one of these things that these kind of mannequins, you can get them all over the place to varying costs. And getting the cheapest one isn't always necessarily the best thing, because there's a limit to how far anything bends. So this foot here, that's as high as it goes. If you try and push it higher, it will spring back. There's a limit to how far some of these will go and how far you can bend them. So don't always necessarily go for the cheapest, because sometimes you can't actually get them into this one. I don't think I would ever be able to properly get into that position. I might, I'm not totally sure. So yeah, a little bit of fun there from Susan. What I would say, there is a slight thing that slightly bothers me with this one, Susan, which is about the imported background texture. So now I don't know what colour your background was originally. Maybe it was black, and then maybe you used a layer to go lighten, or however it's done. But a couple of little bits, the one bit where it's not quite light, so we can see the background texture in the wood is now actually cutting in. The overlay hasn't worked exactly right. So there's little bits in there. We can see, where it's kind of cutting through the head. But a bigger problem here actually is the angle of the wood on the background, because your mannequin and feathers are kind of lying flat or just slightly tilted. But the wooden background is like upright flat. And I think if you're going to place it so it looks more, you really needed to kind of flatten that out. So that would have required maybe making it bigger than the actual picture itself, and then pulling the upper corners in a bit to give you a little bit of perspective. And then that would have kind of felt like it was flattening out, or lowering down that background texture. So I've got nothing against putting in background textures. I've done that plenty of times myself, but it is one of those things where you can get caught out by little things, and that angle, I think, is one of those that kind of really stands out. Other things like where it's overlapping or not quite lining up, that's always tricky particularly when you've got very textured. I mean, how it's particularly difficult to manage around. Actually, it tends to be harder to manage around the feathery bits. You can see here by the leg here where it's sort of maybe not. So it's a tricky one to do. A quick glance though, it works. what you're doing is you're showing it to somebody who's a photographer and plays around with Photoshop a lot. So I tend to notice these things probably more quickly than most people would. But anyway, worth mentioning, I think, in terms of if you're putting a background in, it's one of the trickiest things is when compositing, when you're doing a composite, putting more than one image together in Photoshop, is to make sure that all the elements match up. So the lighting, the color scheme, and of course the edges all have to sort of sit as though it's perfectly natural. And it's not that easy to do. People will talk about photoshopping something as though all you do is you press a button and miraculously things blend together. But actually things do blend together, but not particularly well. Or it's much more difficult to get it to blend it together well. And very often you have to go in and play around and pixel push a little bit. But yeah, fun idea with the wooden mannequin, the feathers, and the idea of the textured background as well. So yeah, thanks for sending that one in, Susan. Where are we at? So Viji says, cozy. April says, oh, you're funny, nice soft bed. Lisa's laughing, lol. John says, like the composition here, well thought out. Susan's going, oops, wasn't too careful, was I? April says, Susan, I would not even know where to start to overlay it. And Viji says, Kim easily catches these. One reason I never send him edited pics. Right. Okay. So next up, we're going to go to Marilyn. And, wow. Yeah. So Marilyn has got broccoli, and wow, what a texture with this, and a colour and a light. And there's such a sense of freshness. You can smell, you can taste, you can rub it on your cheek. Marilyn says, broccoli is certainly an everyday food item, but once I used it as a macro/still life subject, and I was intrigued with its textures. After many different versions of lighting and composition, I found this one gave me that taste of broccoli. And I think that's great. You see, that's, that I really like that notion, Marilyn, that it's not just you took a stick of broccoli, took the photo and that's it, but many different versions. So moving the light around, playing with different angles, playing with the composition, playing with where the focal point is. And each photo that you take gets you a step closer to the one where finally you get to this. And with your little tweaks of editing or whatever, bring out that real sense of taste and smell and touch and texture. So it's a really fulsome picture, this. Really nicely done. And I mean, it's at that level whereby you could happily see this one sitting in a magazine with, some bit of writing talking about, make sure you're getting your 5 a day idea. Viji says, oh, this is a beauty. April says, yummy, great texture shot of broccoli. Susan says, that's amazing, Marilyn, love it. And Lisa says, great, Marilyn. So, lovely shot. I have to confess I'm not a huge broccoli fan in terms of taste, but I seriously appreciate that as a photo. Very nicely done. Next up then, we've got Nicola, who I presume is still cycling away. It wouldn't be that pleasant to be out there cycling in this, but anyway, that's so more kudos to her for getting out in all weather. So Nicola sends, so this is another tree one, only this time, unlike Meg's one, which was contrasting with the moss, Nicola's is contrasting with the ivy that's on it, this bright green. And again, the difference with the sort of shininess and smoothness of the ivy leaf as opposed to the hardness of the texture of the bark on the tree. And Nicola says, hi Kim, this is my textures photo submission. It was a typical dull January day here in Scotland when I took the shot this week. It's a close-up of a big cherry blossom tree trunk in our garden. I like the way there's a variation in the bark and texture, and that the ivy kind of links the two. Looking forward to seeing what everyone else comes up with. Thanks. So yeah, there's multiple textures within the bark. I mean, if we look over here on the right side, we've got these sort of smoother patches and then these little bits where it's kind of split and become harder. Whereas you come and, as she says, the ivy kind of almost splits that. On the right, we've got that. And on the left, we've got the much more knobbly bark and this, which almost looks like spilled over lava coming, dried up from hardened from the volcano. And so that nice little work. And the green then also operates as, you know, the ivy operates as kind of third texture separating out the other two. So yes, where are we? Susan says, that's amazing, Marilyn. Love it. Lisa says, great, Marilyn. Oh, sorry, that's back to Marilyn's broccoli ones. Right, okay, yeah, sorry. April says, I love the ivy on the tree. Viji says, gorgeous, Nicola. Brown and greens go well together. Right, okay, so yes, thank you for sending that one in, Nicola. Lisa says, I love the different contrast between the bark and the leaves. And Susan says, love the way the ivy trails down the tree with each leaf separate. Marcy says, lava flow is a good description. Next up, then we have Robert. Robert in Texas sent this one. Well, Robert in Tennessee, if he's actually here at the moment, says, here's my photo for the texture challenge. Thanks. Didn't say an awful lot. However, I recognise this photo. Robert sent this one in before. If I remember rightly, this was one that Robert did photo stacking with. So basically, the way he took this photo, because if you notice this photo of the guitar, we're quite close up to it. In fact, actually, I think it's a 5-string bass, is it? No, it isn't. No, it's an ordinary electric guitar. Sorry, it does have 6 strings. me miscounting. But if you were normally this close to the guitar, it would be very, very difficult to have both this part down here in focus and it to still be in focus that far up the neck as well. So what Robert did was he took multiple, I can't remember, it was something like about 30 odd or plus photos, or was it even one of these where he went over 100? I can't remember. But basically what he did was he took a photo, changed the focal point, took another one, changed the focal point, took another, changed the focal point. And each time in tiny increments, just changed the focal point. So first of all, it would have started off, say, down here, then the next one would have been focused here, the next one would have been focused here, next one here, next one here, and so on. And then once you've got all those photos together where each has got a different slice which is in focus, you put it through Photoshop or another similar editing program where you can do focus stacking. And then the editing program recognizes where the sharp in focus bits are, and then takes the bit from each photo and puts it in together, so you end up with one photo which has multiple frames together. Susan's done similar things with some of her still lifes. We've talked about that before as well. Where are we? April says, great still life of the guitar. Viji says, Robert was waiting for a black and white shot. Good one. Lisa says, this is a classic, love it. Robert says, it's a baritone guitar. Aha. I wasn't at home, so I had Anne send the photo, but you remember the image setup, bravo. Susan says, I recall this image, Robert, as well. I loved it then and still love it. The grain really stands out. So yeah, lots of texture on this, and the contrasting texture that you've got the grain of the wood here, but you've also got that wound metal from the strings as well. There's the shiny brass bits of the frets and where the pickups are. So it's and sort of metals over here as well, down to the screw heads. So texture is what it's really all about. Interestingly, putting it into black and white, you're less distracted by the color. If you were looking at it in color, the kind of core part of the guitar, the body of the guitar, would be one color, which would be a different color to the pickups and the neck and everything else. And so your brain would separate out these different areas. If you think a bit like the ivy and the bark, your eye gets drawn to the color, and that's okay. But what happens when you actually remove the color is, in a way, you become slightly more aware of the textural difference. It becomes more about texture because it's about tonal range, light and dark, as opposed to color range. And John says, one of the better guitar picks I've seen by far. So yes, thank you for sending that one in, Robert. Now next one. Yes, this was a fun one. And so Nurije. So Nurije down in Devon says, morning, Kim. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do much this week as I've been poorly with flu that's been going around. So I'm sending this one I took a couple of weeks ago at Exmouth Beach. And she goes, well, I went to get a few shots of the sunrise, but it never happened because I didn't manage to get there in time for one reason or another. I am so familiar with that. Yes, I completely appreciate that notion of not getting there in time for the right bit of sunrise. However, she says, instead, I noticed the sand as it was frosty, so frost on the sand. And I waited for a few minutes for the light to hit that particular spot, and the shadows made it look like little sand dunes. Normally, as we know, the sand is soft, but that day, it was because it was covered by the frost, it felt quite crunchy, and I liked it. And there is something rather special about this. I really do like it. So if we move in close here, we can see the sand crystals over here, and with the sun just catching it, all, you know, the rich golden colour. But then it moves into the white frost crystals, which are different. And you can just see the little bits of frost sticking up. And of course they're white, and then you got that sort of slight grey blue into the shadow of the ice crystals and the warm brown, yellowy browns of the sand crystals. And then the shadows moving across, giving that sense of, the dune aspect of it. Now, obviously it's not big sand dunes or what have you, but it has, you know, the ripples effect, the wind sculpted shapes of the sand on it. So yeah, lovely sense of texture, colour, light with that. Very nicely done, Nurije. It's a good one, that. What do we have? April says cool sand shot. The close is neat looking. Close up is neat looking. Yeah, I think it would quite be fun doing that, getting in there with a macro lens as well. Viji says looks like a miniature desert, and the grain of sands, the light and shadow play is beautiful. The depth brings in the texture as well. And Susan says, well done on getting both sand and frost, Nurije, beautifully done. And Elisa says, a beautiful shot. Excellent. Right. Okay. So that brings us to the conclusion of the images that have been sent in. So what we're going to do now then is your vote. In a minute I will tell you what. So just added bit of fun is this notion of a little bit of ranking. So I will give you my top 3, and there are bonus smug points to be had. For my favourite gets a bonus 30 smug points, second place a bonus 20, and third place a bonus 10. Everybody gets 10 for anybody who sent an image in, gets a bonus 10 smug points as well. And anybody who's left a comment live gets a bonus 5 smug points. So if you happen to be lurking and haven't left a comment and don't want to miss out on your 5 bonus smug points, then get your comment in quickly. But there's also a bonus 20 smug points to be had for the crowd vote. And sometimes the crowd vote ties in with mine, and sometimes it is wildly different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through, I'm going to show you the images again, just one by one, and you take a look at the photos, decide which one is your favourite, and then I'll get you to put the name in, and we'll see who wins the crowd vote. So just one per person. I know sometimes you all start typing in 2 or 3 because you don't know how to choose. Doesn't work. I'll just take the name. If you type in more than one, I'll just take the first name that you put it in. So so to take you back then, the first photo we had was the rope by John. So this is John, if you want to vote for John's rope. Then we have Lisa's aging pepper. So that's Lisa. Then we have Nadia's lizard, or Komodo dragon, I think she said it was. So that's Nadia. We have Meg, Meg's tree bark. We have April's muesli. This is April. Then we have Janet for the skating. So that's Janet. We have Viji for the Pongal. That's Viji. Then we have Susan's feather bed. So that's Susan. Then Marilyn did the broccoli. So that's Marilyn for the broccoli. Nicola for the tree and the ivy. So that's Nicola's. Robert has done the guitar with the photo stacking. So that's Robert. And Nurije for the sand with the frost crystals. on it. So that's Nurije for the sand. So what I want you to do now is stick the name in of the picture that you like the best, and whoever gets the most of these will get the bonus 20 points. So yes, that's kind of where we're at now. So while we're waiting for that, I'll tell you what is coming up over the next 4 weeks. Well, basically next week I'm going to be talking about the new album from the Firelight Trio. So some of you may remember last year I did a series, I think I did a podcast on where I was doing behind the scenes photos for the Firelight Trio. They're a band, 3-piece band. They do amazing, incredible music, and I was doing behind the scenes. And then what happened was we did the shot for the album cover. And that's been sitting under wraps until yesterday, when the album was officially launched at the Celtic Connections last night. However, earlier this week, they just wanted to put the album cover out to show what people look like. So if anybody was following my social media, you'll see the album cover that's been appearing in my Facebook and Instagram feeds. So that was a picture of the three of them in the woods round a fireplace, and that's now been used as the album cover. So next week I'm going to talk about how that photo was created. Then, depending on whoever's won the Smug Points for January, they get to choose the topic of choice for February. So whatever that is, in 2 weeks' time, I'll then talk about the topic. Then there will be a feedback session. You get to send me images. I give you feedback on your photos for week 3. And then week 4 will be the challenge of whatever the topic is. So in week 2, I'll talk about the topic, set the challenge. And then week 4, you send me the images just like you've done today. So hope that all makes sense. So little drum roll, please. How have we done here? Where have we got to? So votes that have come in. Where have we got? Stacey said all the photos are interesting, making breakfast for my dogs and my fiance at the moment. Busy morning. Okay, but you haven't told me which one you would vote for. Marcy says, love the frosting. Great pick. Now, is that the end of now? Is that you voting for the frosting, Marcy, or is that just you happening to comment on Nurije before I started? So Marilyn, broccoli from John. So hang on, what have we got? Marilyn, Lisa, Nadia, and April. Well, I think Marilyn's broccoli is the winner for that one. So I will make a quick note of that viewer's choice, Marilyn. So Marilyn gets the bonus 20 Smug Points for her broccoli photo, which, so congratulations to Marilyn for that one. Excellent. So what about my choice? And again, there's this notion of, as always, It's not easy. It's tricky trying to come up with the notion of who I would select for the best. Could vary. You catch me tomorrow, catch me in an hour's time, and I could choose a different one. So don't get too hung up on it. But if you get it or you don't get it, but for me on this occasion, where I'm at the moment, my winner had to be April with April's breakfast. It does everything for me. It's got all the texture. It triggers all the taste buds. So I'm getting taste as well as texture. I love the everydayness of it. And although she has used a light box, there is this sense of you're just looking down into your bowl. You're looking down into your bowl at breakfast time, and you're seeing all these different textures. That notion of taking the mundane, the everyday, and just capturing that sense of it in such a way that it triggers the senses. So for me, the bonus 30 points is then going to April. 20 points, second place. What a nightmare this was. I'm trying to work out that one. So in the end, I'm doing a joint second. So joint second place then is going to Marilyn for the broccoli, for all the reasons that everybody else loves Marilyn's broccoli. I think it is really a superbly taken photo, and it really just gives you that whole sense of the smell and the taste and the feel of it. Beautifully lit. So Marilyn, but I'm also doing a joint with Nurije because I have to say I love that frost on the sand. It's just yeah, it's not something you see very often, at least not round here at any rate. Or maybe I just don't get down to the beach a lot. But that whole combination of the grains of sand, but also the texture of the frost and the colour difference and the way that it just kind of catches edging. There's just so much going on in that. So Nurije and Marilyn both get 20 points for my joint second place. And then my third place for bonus 10 points, I think has to go to Viji for the Pongal. As well as having lots of texture, such a fantastic story as well. And knowing the story does in fact enhance my enjoyment of what I'm looking at as well. And it's kind of an interesting idea on that. And we've touched on it before, but how much does a title influence how you view a picture or the story behind it? How much does it influence? Should a picture stand on its own right just as a thing? There's lots of kind of debate to be had with that. Right. Oh, Marcy says yes. So is that yes to the Nadias? I think so, but I think Marilyn's still outweighed everybody. Yes, Marcy says, I vote frosting, close call with the broccoli. Yeah, okay, thank you. But in the end, I think Marilyn still has got that one. But I will actually, a couple of quick commendeds, that's the word I was thinking of. But I also think I will give a where are we? Yeah, I will give a commended to John as well, because I think that rope is particularly it's got a lovely that texture really kind of comes out in that. And what else? Oh yes, Lisa. Where's Lisa's? And yes, another great sense of texture, I think, in the aged pepper. So Lisa and John both get a bonus of 5 smug points on the commended. Like I say, it doesn't mean I didn't like anybody else's, but everybody who sent something in gets their 10 points for putting something in. So thank you ever so much to everybody for sending in these images. Hopefully then it's inspired you to go, oh right, okay, maybe I can have a go at doing something like that, or maybe it'll help me to keep an eye out for something else. The great thing about this notion of texture is it can be every day. You can go and find the texture in the tree. You can find it on a broccoli. You can find it peering into a bowl of soup or a bowl of breakfast even. Soups as well, for that matter. In fact, practically everything has a texture, even something that's smooth. That's a smooth texture. The real trick is, how do you find a way to enhance that, to give out that sense of texture? And some of these textures have come because they are just completely absorbing everything, like fill the frame, and some are coming because they are compared to other textures which are in the shot. So lots of great stuff there. Like I say, next week I will be talking about the Firelight Trio album cover, the concept, creating it, a couple of other photos that went along with it, that kind of idea. Hope you'll enjoy that. I'll have to add up now the Smug Points, work out who the winner is. I think it's going to be very, very close. So I'll do that, and then I will be in touch with whoever the winner is to sort of come up with the topic for February. Then we'll be talking about the topic for February, then we'll have a feedback session, and then we'll have the challenge as well. So I think that's pretty much us. If you enjoyed these podcasts, you would like to support them, buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. And of course, don't forget to hit like on the podcast as well, and subscribe, tell your friends, all the usual bits and pieces. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. I think that's pretty much everybody. The rest of the comments here, I think, are the congratulations to various people and the and the thank yous and have a great weeks and all the rest of the bits and pieces. And yeah, comments about hoping you all stay warm in North America there with your big freeze And Viji's having a India Republic Day parade tomorrow is going to. Well, I hope you get some interesting photos for that. Take care. Have fun. See you all next week. Bye-bye.